It all started with a creaking sound in the dead of night. A sound so subtle, you'd think it was your imagination. That's how it begins, you see, with a tiny whisper of dread in the darkest corner of your mind. It was a stormy night, and the rain was relentless. The kind of night that makes you grateful for the warmth and safety of your home. Our protagonist, Sarah, had just moved into an old house with her young daughter, Emily. It was a beautiful home with a charming exterior, but the basement was a place she couldn't ignore. The real estate agent had assured her that the basement was just a little dusty, a bit of a fixer-upper. But as Sarah descended the creaky stairs into the darkness, she could feel the oppressive weight of history pressing down on her. The basement was cold, damp, and filled with an eerie silence. As the light bulb overhead flickered to life, Sarah noticed something strange. There was an old painting on the wall, a painting of a family from long ago. Their eyes seemed to follow her as she moved, their smiles curving into unsettling grins. It gave her an uncanny feeling, but she dismissed it as her imagination. With time, Sarah and Emily settled into their new home, and life seemed to return to normal. But those creaking sounds from the basement persisted, growing louder and more insistent each night. Sarah couldn't ignore it any longer. She decided to investigate, and her descent into the basement began a journey that would haunt her for the rest of her days. The basement was more than just a dusty cellar. It was a labyrinth of hidden chambers, long-forgotten relics, and ancient secrets. Sarah discovered a locked door at the far end, one that the real estate agent had never mentioned. It was an old wooden door, weathered by time and worn with age. Using every ounce of strength, Sarah managed to force the door open, revealing a room like something from a horror film. A room filled with antique dolls, all arranged in a circle. Their eyes seemed to gleam in the dim light, and their porcelain faces twisted into grotesque expressions. Sarah's heart raced as she felt a presence in that room, a presence that shouldn't have been there. As she retreated in terror, she heard a whisper, a voice from the shadows. It was a voice that should have been impossible, for it belonged to Emily, who was supposed to be asleep upstairs. Emily's voice trembled as she said, "Mommy, help me." Sarah raced upstairs to Emily's room, only to find it empty. Panic welled up inside her as she searched the house, calling out for her daughter. The storm outside raged on, and it felt like the house itself was closing in on her. But there was no sign of Emily. In a desperate frenzy, Sarah returned to the basement, convinced that whatever lurked there had taken her daughter. She heard that voice again, Emily's voice, echoing from the hidden room. The dolls were no longer in their circle. They were arranged now in a line, leading to that ominous door. Summoning all her courage, Sarah pushed open the door and stepped into a room bathed in a dim, ghastly light. There, she saw her daughter, sitting among the dolls, her eyes vacant and her skin as pale as death. The dolls seemed to whisper and chant in a language Sarah couldn't understand. As Sarah reached out to her daughter, Emily's face contorted into a sinister smile, and she said, "Welcome, Mommy. We've been waiting for you." A ghastly transformation occurred before her eyes as Emily's body contorted, limbs elongating into something grotesque and inhuman. It was then that Sarah realized the truth. Emily was not her daughter, but a malevolent entity that had taken her form. The room was filled with cruel laughter as the dolls animated and closed in on Sarah. The darkness seemed to swallow her, and as her screams echoed through the night, the basement door slammed shut, sealing her fate forever. In a quiet, idyllic town, nestled beside a dense forest, the Morgan family lived in a charming Victorian house. The house had been in their family for generations, and there was a dark secret that had been handed down through the years. An eerie tale of the basement. For decades, the Morgans had been warned never to enter the basement after dark. The town's elders whispered about strange occurrences that took place in that subterranean chamber once the sun dipped below the horizon. No one had dared to venture down there in the black of night, for they feared the supernatural force that dwelled beneath. One autumn evening, curiosity got the better of young Matthew Morgan. He had heard the stories, but dismissed them as the tales of superstitious townsfolk. With a flashlight in hand, he descended the creaky stairs into the basement. The air grew heavy, and a sense of unease enveloped him as he reached the bottom. In the dim glow of his flashlight, Matthew saw an ancient, ornate door that he had never noticed before. It was carved with intricate symbols and covered in cobwebs. He pushed the door open, and an icy breeze rushed out, extinguishing his flashlight. Darkness engulfed him. A soft, ethereal glow emanated from within the room. Matthew's heart pounded as he entered, and he was met with an otherworldly sight. The basement had transformed into a surreal dreamscape. Floating in the air were spectral figures, shimmering and translucent. They whispered incomprehensible secrets that echoed in the chamber. The spirits seemed unaware of Matthew's presence, trapped in a never-ending dance of sorrow and regret. They swirled around, tracing a story through their movements of a tragic love affair, betrayal, and a murder that had occurred in that very house decades ago. As Matthew watched in horror, one of the spirits approached him. Its mournful eyes locked onto his, and it beckoned for him to follow. Matthew hesitated, but was compelled to do as the spirit wished. The spirit led him to an old trunk tucked away in the corner of the basement. Inside, he found a journal filled with the tormented confessions of the murderer. The truth of what happened in that house was laid bare, and it was more chilling than anyone had ever imagined. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and a ghostly voice whispered, "Beware the secrets you unearth, for they have a way of pulling you into the abyss." Panicked, Matthew tried to escape the basement, but the door had vanished, leaving only a solid wall behind. He was trapped with the vengeful spirits, forced to bear witness to their eternal torment. As the hours passed, the spirits danced and wailed, and Matthew was drawn into their tragic tale. The once curious young man became just another wraith in the basement, lost to the supernatural forces that dwelled within. And to this day, if you visit the Morgan house and stand near the basement door after nightfall, you may hear the faint, mournful cries and whispers of the spirits forever imprisoned in their basement of horrors. The Hargrove family had just moved into a quaint suburban house that seemed perfect for their fresh start. Amy, John, and their two young children, Mia and Ethan, were excited about the new beginning. The house was spacious and charming, and they had no idea what secrets it held beneath the surface. From the moment they moved in, strange things started happening. Unexplained noises, whispers in the night, and objects moving on their own. The family brushed these occurrences off as mere quirks of an old house. One fateful night, John decided to investigate the strange sounds coming from the basement. As he descended the creaky stairs, He noticed an area of the basement that had been concealed behind a curtain. There, he discovered a small, hidden room. It was a dim, eerie chamber filled with disturbing artwork and writings scrawled across the walls. Upon closer examination, John realized that these were not just random scribbles, but detailed accounts of murders. The writings described violent, gruesome acts committed against innocent victims. The truth dawned on him. The previous owner of the house had been a notorious serial killer, and this was his secret lair. Panicked, John went to the authorities, but there was no record of any such killer living in the house. They dismissed his claims, leaving him bewildered and frightened. It was clear that he would need to protect his family from the sinister forces that resided within the basement. The Hargroves decided to investigate further, unearthing old newspaper clippings and hidden journals that detailed the killer's reign of terror. The deeper they dug, the more they uncovered about his obsession with the house and its history of gruesome secrets. Their research led them to a chilling realization: the killer had never truly left. In a hidden tunnel beneath the basement, they discovered a concealed room where the killer had been living, watching their every move. He had been hiding in plain sight, silently stalking the family from the depths of the house. The family decided to confront the killer, who revealed himself with a malevolent grin. He had been waiting for the perfect time to strike, and the Hargroves had inadvertently given him the opportunity he needed. A deadly game of cat and mouse ensued, with the family fighting for their lives against the relentless killer. In the darkness of the basement, the final showdown took place, with the odds stacked against the Hargroves. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Mia, their young daughter, managed to escape and call the police. The killer was apprehended, and the family survived, forever scarred by the horrors they had encountered in their new home. But that's where the story takes a chilling turn. The police found evidence that the killer had been connected to a larger underground network of criminals who had infiltrated the town for years. They believed that the Hargroves had uncovered their secrets and decided to eliminate the family as witnesses. The killer, along with his accomplices, managed to escape police custody, leaving the Hargroves in a state of perpetual fear. They relocated to a different town, living under new identities, but the shadow of the killer and his associates loomed over them, a constant reminder that evil could lurk around any corner. But this was not the end. In their new town, the Hargrove family tried to rebuild their lives, but the relentless fear and paranoia clung to them like a shadow. They had relocated to an undisclosed location, changed their names, and taken every precaution to keep their true identities hidden. For a time, life seemed somewhat normal. The children made new friends, and Amy and John tried to find some semblance of peace. But the scars from that night in their old house still haunted them, and the basement's dark secrets had forever changed their perception of safety. Then, one quiet evening, as they were getting ready for dinner, the lights flickered, and the temperature in the room plummeted. A sharp, eerie chill filled the air, and the Hargrove family exchanged nervous glances. As they gathered in the dimly lit kitchen, a message appeared on the wall, written in a crimson, oozing substance. "I found you." Their hearts raced, and the creeping dread returned with a vengeance. It seemed the killer and his associates had not given up on their quest for vengeance. The Hargroves were once again caught in a relentless game of cat and mouse, with no idea when or where the next strike would come from. The family huddled together, realizing that the terror they thought they had left behind was now inescapably following them. They were plunged into a perpetual state of suspense, their lives held hostage by the malevolent force that had never truly released its grip.